So I would like to open my speech with a story which was told at CISAC's first Congress in 1926, and it was told by the French playwright and one of the four co-founders of CISAC, Robert de Flers. So, a few years before the creation of CISAC, de Flers was walking to the theater here in Paris. And as he was walking down the street, he came across a thin and visibly distressed woman. She was holding her child. When he asked what he might do to help her, she replied, "Nothing." "But the child appears to be in pain," de Flers said. "Yes," she replied, "we are both hungry." De Flers insisted on helping, and the woman answered, "I'm living in poverty, and yet I'm descendant from Jean Racine." Jean Racine, of course, was one of the great playwrights of the 17th century France, along with Molière and Corneille. This story was told not only at the first meeting of CISAC, it was also told in 1976, exactly 50 years ago, also here in Paris, when CISAC celebrated its 50th anniversary. It may seem a bit over-sentimental, but it reminds us of the economic struggles that creators and their families have always faced. It says everything about why we are here. It reminds us of the importance of protecting creators and the crucial role of collective management in doing that. And it sets the scene for what drove the launch of the first international organization to protect creators' rights exactly 100 years ago. Over the last century, the world around us has changed in ways the CISAC founders could not have imagined. Creators have had to find new ways to create, express themselves, and reach audiences. Societies have had to adapt to meet ever-changing market conditions and new realities. But there have been two key elements that have always remained the same. The first is that all of these market changes and technological advances have been outweighed by a strong sense of continuity in the role of collective management. And the second is the fact that the challenges creators face today are strikingly similar to those faced by our founders back in 1926. Plus ça change, as they would say in the city. Today, just as it was on the day CISAC was created, the fight for fair remuneration pitches creators against some of the world's most powerful commercial entities. Entities that make profits from music creative works, but resist paying for them. You will all be familiar with the famous incident that took place not far from here, where the French composer Ernst Bourget demanded that the Café des Ambassadeurs pay for performing his music. When the café owners refused, the matter went to court. Bourget won, and that victory led to the establishment of SACEM, the first music collective management organization in the world. The café was only a short walk from here. Another place that's close is the Hotel Salomon de Rothschild, where leaders of 18 societies gathered to discuss cooperation between them and ended up establishing CISAC. That meeting in June 1926 was hosted by the leaders of SACD, the first author society in the world, which was created by Beaumarchais, also here in Paris, of course, in 1777. The conviction that united the 18 societies who launched CISAC was that creativity knows no borders and that creators deserve protection everywhere. And so they've decided to create a new entity, a confederation, where they would be able to coordinate their activities. And the rest, of course, is history. From those humble beginnings and early roots, CISAC has grown exponentially. It expanded from its Eurocentric foundations to North America. It continued to Latin America, where CISAC's first convention outside the Northern Hemisphere was held in Buenos Aires in 1948. That convention was opened with a visionary speech by none other than Juan Perón, the charismatic president of Argentina. CISAC later expanded to Africa and to Asia, and what began as a handful of societies has evolved into a truly global network of more than 220 societies across well over 100 countries. But the expansion was not only geographic. CISAC has expanded from dramatic arts and music to audiovisual works, literature, and visual art. It has moved from simple coordination to establishing global standards and best practices. It expanded to deal with technology tools, data, and identifiers. And it has become a global lobbying powerhouse with influence at international, regional, and national levels. Our history teaches us an important lesson, that the challenges creators face today are not new. These are the same challenges that our predecessors faced at the birth of every single new technology. At that first convention in 1926, CISAC co-founder Robert de Flers talked about the intermediaries who were attempting to control content, dictate terms, and deprive revenues owed to creators. He was referring back then to theaters, to theater owners. But in a modern setting, he could be talking about streaming platforms, social media, auction houses, or artificial intelligence companies. A year after that, in 1927, the film The Jazz Singer was released. It was the first motion picture that synchronized the human voice to the movement of the actors' and singers' lips. The film studios quickly argued that the composers are not entitled to any royalties because the film was a new original work. They claimed that once the music was incorporated into a film, it lost its independent rights. Nearly a century after The Jazz Singer, we hear the same argument again, only this time it's from artificial intelligence companies. They claim that royalties are not due to copyright owners and for creative works because what they are doing is transformative. Just like the film companies of the late 1920s, the AI companies argue that they've created something new. They want to use creative works, but they don't want to pay for them. They want to generate profits from using human creations, but they want to keep all these profits for themselves. History teaches us that this has happened time and time again. And history also teaches us that persistence and strong collective action on our side will always prevail. So when we look back and as we mark our centenary, there's much that we should celebrate. The first is our global network. The very existence of a truly global network that connects societies across geographies and repertoires. The second is the professionalization of collective management. We have professionalized this sector through common governance rules, standards, and technology tools. The third reason to celebrate is the impact of our advocacy work. CISAC has engaged governments, multilateral institutions, and decision-making bodies in almost every corner of the world. In fact, this advocacy began on the second day of CISAC's existence when our co-founders went to the Élysée Palace for a meeting with Aristide Briand, the president of France at the time. In the 100 years that followed, we continued in the same spirit. We have constantly met with presidents, prime ministers, and many politicians and decision makers. And we have put creators, our most prized asset, at the forefront of these lobbying efforts. It has enabled our message to have a real impact. But beyond all of these achievements lies a deeper mission. For a century, CISAC has reminded the world that culture is not a luxury. It is a foundation of our societies. It is at the heart of our identity. And behind every song, every film, every painting, and every book, there is a creator whose livelihood matters. A centenary is not just a look back, it's also a mirror and a compass. So, what might the next 100 years look like? I can see a number of key tasks ahead for us and important roles for our community. We will need to continue to bridge the gap between usage and remuneration. As modes of creation and consumption continue to evolve, the core problem of obtaining fair reward for creativity will remain. And I have no doubt that one of the key roles of CISAC will be to push for regulatory environments that uphold authors' rights rather than erode them. We will need to advance the quality of metadata, data exchanges, and transparency. The next century will see accelerated digital developments and possibly new forms of interactive and immersive creation using AI. For rights to apply and royalties to flow, the quality of data on rights and usage will have to evolve. And CISAC, with its global reach, is uniquely placed to foster new standards for works identification and data exchanges that cross borders and media. We will also need to support creators in emerging markets and repertoires. Many parts of the world remain underrepresented in the global rights ecosystems. And many repertoires, including visual art and audiovisual, are still lacking substantive rights in many countries. We will need to continue to strengthen domestic laws and to build collective management capacities to ensure that all creators are included in our global fabric. We will also need to continue championing cultural diversity in the creator's voice. We've always been the guardian of plurality, but in an era of global platforms, local flavors and unique voices, they risk being sidelined. And one of our key roles will be to advocate for the value of cultural diversity and to ensure that creators from all backgrounds and every corner of the world benefit from protection. And finally, but perhaps most importantly, we will need to adapt to new forms of creation. The very concept of author will likely change in the next century, with collaborative creation, AI co-creation, mixed media works, and many others that we cannot even think of today. It's difficult to foresee what's next, but in order to remain relevant, our community will have to embrace change, be flexible, be dynamic, and be prepared to adapt and to respond to new market realities. So let me conclude by saying that 100 years after its creation, CISAC stands as proof of what collective vision and solidarity can achieve. From 18 societies in 1926 to hundreds today. From a small group of visionaries to a community that spans continents, cultures, and generations. From local licensing to global infrastructures. And from a simple idea to a powerful force defending creators all over the world. Our journey has been inspiring. And as we enter our second century, let us remember something fundamental. The future of creativity will not be written by algorithms. It will not be written by machines. It will be written by human creators. And together, it is our responsibility to ensure that their voices, their rights, and their creativity continue to shape our world for the next 100 years. Thank you.